In fact, I and Mr. P.A. Namdar and Mr. Kamal Farooqi had gone to Calcutta for a program. There was a lecture. And there we were discussing about a few cases. And this idea of organizing this evening came there. And Mr. P.A. Namdar sitting here has come from Pune. He immediately gave this responsibility to Mr. Farooqi and me that you must do it. and then we approached Mr. Sibal, who kindly agreed for this. So that's how we are here. I feel this is a memorable evening which will go a long way. See, many of us are here senior counsels, journalists, lawyers. I don't need to introduce Mr. Sibal. We all know, many of you know more than I know about Mr. Sibal. And that's why I will not say, many things about Mr. Sibal, but I will at least say this much, that in last 22 years, myself being at the bar, I have seen Mr. Sibal for last 8 years when Mr. Sibal demitted that Union Ministry office. And I have assisted him in many important matters of constitutional importance. He is not only an extraordinary lawyer, छोटा मुंह बड़ी बात हो जाएगी मेरे लिए, great policy maker who has always stood for the poor, downtrodden, minorities, and all those who thought that there is some element of injustice being caused to him. And whoever has approached Mr. Sibal to say that, see, this is the injustice that I am facing, Mr. Sibal has always willingly taken those cases, obviously pro bono, and has stood up for them. This is also a fact that he has also stood for industrialists, politicians, governments, and whatever we can imagine a litigant could be, and who would be facing difficulties, and he's facing that he is wrongly being persecuted or prosecuted. I must say that he is a great human being. Not only as a lawyer, he sees things what a humanist would see in a person, and has always approached even the litigation with that angle. I just saw when Mr. Sibal was arguing about 15-20 days back, the bench asked that, Mr. Sibal, from where you have got this proposition? Probably the bench wanted Mr. Sibal to cite some previous precedent. He said, my lord, from nowhere. And then the bench expected that he will explain. So he said that this is the constitutional issue you need to decide. And that reflects in the judgment. The judgment came recently. So I don't want to say much. Mr. Sibal is here, and we would request Mr. P.A. Inamdar, Mr. Farooqi, Mr. Qureshi is here, Mr. Ahmadi is here, Justice Anjana Prakash, our Mr. Raju Ramachandran, who has also been there all the time, he is present. So I will request Mr. Sibal to please come here and Arijit. To formally start with, I'll request Mr. Inamdar to come forward and offer a moment to Mr. Sibal. Please. Mr. Farooqi may please give a bouquet to Mr. Sibal.
मुझे इलेक्शन टाइम याद आ गया.
Yes. It is necessary because you are the person of today, and everybody should acknowledge the personality you are, and for that purpose at least you may permit us to do some
No issue at all. I'm just saying, just feeling a bit nostalgic, that's all.
Yes, Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, please come forward and offer a bouquet to Mr. Sibal.
Yaqub Bhai was my classmate.
Oh.
At St. Stephen's. So we've traveled many years together.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Faisal Wali Rahmani has come all the way from Patna. He is Chief of Imarat Sharia of the state of Bihar, Orissa and Jharkhand. He is the son of Maulana Wali Rahmani, late Maulana Wali Rahmani. Madam Justice Anjana Prakash is here. Senior counsel.
And stands for justice.
Stands for justice. She has stood up in many cases as litigant as well as lawyer.
No. Please. Thank you very much.
So now may I request Mr. Farooqi to come here and say a few words, and then formally we will start conversation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Shamshad Bhai, that you gave me this opportunity. We are extremely grateful to our friend, philosopher, and a person who is always available when we need him. I have my personal gratitudes to him because I have the liberty to even see him without seeking a prior appointment, and at some time he says that Farooqi sahab मैं बहुत busy हूँ. When I say that sir मैं अच्छा बात में कहीं आ जाइए, आप 2 मिनट के लिए आ जाइए. So this is his quality, and sir, definitely you would be remembered as one of the towering personality in the legal profession because you have done justice for all those people who seek the justice from the courts. So we are extremely grateful to you, and today when we see that we are celebrating 50 years of your advocacy all around, so we feel that we are the proud persons, in fact, who happen to know you personally and who have seen you working for the downtrodden communities and for the secular cause, which today is definitely in a great danger. So we look forward that you would continue to help us. अब जब बात आती है तो हम लोग सर ज़रा दिल्ली कॉलेज के पढ़े हुए हैं, तो ज़रा थोड़ा सा एक आध शेर सुनाने की आपसे इजाज़त मिलेंगे कि बहुत मशहूर सा शेर है, आप जानते होंगे, लेकिन शायद शायर ने कुछ इसी किस्म की पर्सनैलिटीज़ के लिए लिखा था वो, कि हज़ारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है, बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा। और शायद इसके बाद एक और भी बात कहनी पड़ेगी कि 50 साल हो गए हैं आपको कंटिन्यू करते हुए प्रोफेशन के अंदर, लेकिन हर रोज हमें ऐसा लगता है कि आप जाने से पहले ये कहकर जाते हैं कि मैं कहाँ रुकता हूँ अर्शो फर्श की आवाज से, मैं कहाँ रुकता हूँ अर्शो फर्श की आवाज से, मुझको उड़ना है बहुत ऊंचा हदे परवाज से। We are extremely grateful to you, sir, and thank you that you have accepted our invitation. Thank you very much. All the best, sir.
Thank you, Farooq Sahab. We had planned that we will start it at 7:30. We are already 8:05, so without further delaying, we had requested Mr. Sibal that after this short felicitation program, we would want to have some conversation with you. And after persuading him, he said, "All right, kar lo." So that is part of this evening, and for that purpose we requested Mr. M.K. Venu, founder of The Wire and known journalist, and Professor Ujjwal Singh, Political Science Department, University of Delhi, to have some conversation with Mr. Sibal. We did not want to sit because we thought that probably lawyers will get into more of arguments than having some meaningful conversation. So we chose two eminent persons from different field. I request Mr. Venu and Professor Ujjwal Singh to come at the dais, and after this short conversation, we'll request few eminent persons from here. Everybody is eminent here. I am saying few persons from the audience to have some interactive conversation or question with Mr. Sibal, so that everybody of us could have some idea what Mr. Sibal has done in last 50 years, how he has stood with the issues and causes. So after about 30-35 minutes of this conversation, we can also have 10 minutes from the audience. Thank you very much. Mr. Venu, Professor Singh.
I just thought I'd start with by requesting, he's the man of the moment, so I think he's the main speaker. And interaction with the audience is also an important part of today's program. So I'll just start by giving him a framework based on which I would like to make him an opening statement, maybe for about 10 minutes.
10 minutes is too long.
Okay. Whatever, 5-6 minutes?
Yeah.
So, because you're trying to, 50 years, 40 years of senior advocate, I mean, there's a lot of memory that you need to, people who want to. So essentially, I thought I'll start with what Ambedkar said in 1948 in the Constituent Assembly, where he argued that the Constitution is only the top dressing on an Indian soil, which is essentially undemocratic. And then subsequently he had hoped that in the decades that followed, Indian institutions would ensure that political democracy would gradually translate into social democracy. And the notion of liberty, equality and fraternity would become an indivisible notion. He used the word trinity, indivisible. So I just want to start by asking him, to what extent has that been realized or not realized, and how does he see the trajectory of the Constitution as envisaged by Ambedkar within that framework? And since the advantage that Mr. Sibal has is that not only has he spent 50 years in the Supreme Court, he also has a inside view of the legislature and the executive. So I think in some ways he's uniquely placed, and also the media. So all the four pillars, he's an active contributor, writes columns. Also experimented with the media business.
I realized how terrible it was. I thought lawyers were the worst bunch.
So,
no, see, the problem is the following. Indian soil was essentially undemocratic. It continues to be undemocratic. Because our ethos, the way that we are brought up, is a my baap culture ethos. You still see people in high positions touching, people's feet. People are not willing to stand up on their own. And if you really look at family cultures, forget about urban India and forget about the educated class and a very small percentage of people. By and large, बच्चे को बोलने की इजाजत नहीं. The child is not allowed on many occasions to say what he feels. People look at the future of the child through their own eyes instead of the future of the child through the eyes of the child. So our education system is based on what the father wants, what the mother wants, not what the child wants. There are not often enough opportunities for the child to, for his personality to flower. So within this, unless there is a complete social transformation, and that social transformation only comes about if freedom resides in the hearts of men and women. Right? The fact of the matter is, freedom does not reside in the hearts of men and women in this country. So if it vanishes there, you'll never get it. So we need a social transformational movement in this country, which has not happened.
So you wouldn't say that the glass is even, say, quarter full?
No. Actually, part of progress, part of the glass will get filled up. But the essential nature of the Indian soil remains the same. And politics has made it worse. Actually, when Ambedkar talked about this, he said that, look, the Constitution is only a document. Right? It ultimately depends on those who are in charge of the polity of India, how they will transform India. And the Constitution remains a document. The structure of the Constitution was meant to provide checks and balances to both Parliament and the Executive. And the real two checks and balances that were envisaged, one was part of the Constitution, one outside, was the Judiciary and the media. And if you really look at the past 8 years in this country, it is those two institutions that have really let us down. So I think Ambedkar's dream remains a dream. And we need to dream about what we want for our children in the future. If we want something, we need to be part of that movement. See the middle class in this country. see the lawyers in this country. All great movements, civilizational movements and for change have been led by professionals, right? By the Badrullah, by lawyers. But the lawyers are silent today. They think that law is a business, not a means to serve people. And if lawyers don't stand up, the Constitution remains in cold print. What you need to is to bring life to those words that can only come about if lawyers stand up without fear of favor. We always want favors, and we are constantly fearful that we will not get them if we speak up. That's the sad story of India.
You started with a very pessimistic note.
It's not pessimistic, it's real. We refuse to see the reality.
No, what I want to ask you is, in the course of your 50 years in the Supreme Court, nearly 40 years as senior advocate, surely there would have been some periods of optimism, high points. Would you like to see the
You see, the problem is the following. The caliber of a judge or of any institution is not judged by what he does on a daily basis. An ordinary case comes about between two litigants, one of them wants justice, he will decide fairly, there's no problem. But his caliber is only judged when the stakes are high.
When the
Stakes are high. Those moments in the history of this country, unfortunately, institutions have always failed us. It's only rare one election commissioner, a couple of chief election commissioners in the history of India has stood up. Right? One of them is sitting here. One of them stood up in Gujarat. One of them stood up. The three of them that I can remember who stood up. Who else? Maybe a few judges, the litany of judges that we have seen stood up. H.R. Khanna stood up. But then, that's not the history of the court. That's the problem. I mean, it's not being pessimistic. See, you cannot bring about change unless you know what the reality is. If you keep on fooling yourself about the reality, you'll never be able to bring out change. That's what you need to do. The middle class has failed us. Consumerism has overtaken us. We've lost the values that actually make nations great. That's the reality.
Into something more positive. So you have 3 generations. The father was.
The thing is it working?
I hope it's working. And you and your 2 sons are there, so I don't know, I've never seen them, but I read in newspapers they are taking up cases, especially from JNU.
Yes.
So there's something good about it, that their lawyers were standing up. And actually probably we wanted to hear whether judges stand up or not. But you turned the thing and you said lawyers are not standing up, but large number of us believe that probably the only space which is available, because lawyers still take up cases. They don't say no to many cases which otherwise will be disturbing to them. So we would rather like to take it this. When you are one institution who's taken up, I've got a series of cases. I'm social scientist, I do research, so nearly every important issue will be there. So which is very positive. Let me ask you a question which is sort of, you've been in Parliament and you've been in Judiciary. There are 2 sides. Which one you enjoy more? Number 1, this small question. The bigger question is, in a debate in Parliament, were you able to actually, clinch an argument by invoking constitutional morality over political expediency? Do you remember any of such occasion?
I really don't remember any such.
So Kapil, UAPA, I remember your speech after
That's
2008.
true. Yeah, but people, see, all is pre-decided in Parliament.
The numbers.
Yeah, they're all numbers. It's the process may be quite attractive, but it's all pre-decided. I mean, take for example the impeachment proceeding that I appeared in. Okay, Ramaswamy's impeachment proceeding. Now, this was supposed to be an occasion for me to convince Parliament. But the fact of the matter is, everybody was issued a whip, a silent whip. You are going to vote against, including the Congress party. That story I will tell later.
Yeah.
So, what's the point? What's the point of having me speak for 5.5, 6 hours in Parliament to convince members of Parliament when there's already a whip issued to say that you're going to vote this way?
Now, having said that, there are moments which you enjoy. You're making. So because Parliament proceedings will be published. So when we're quoting Ambedkar, it's long time back, but we actually go back and pick up arguments which is more important for Indian democracy. Likewise, your statements, your speeches in Parliament or in the courts matters. It may matter 50 years later.
Of course, it do matter. I mean, I'm not saying there is nothing positive happening. I didn't say that. I said the norm is this. When it comes to the crunch, people don't stand up. That's what I'm saying. I mean, not that there are lots of great, people who have stood up, not just in the law, in NGOs have stood up. People are fighting this government. Aisi baat nahi hai. Those are very rare examples of courage, of people who are not worried about the future and are willing to stand up. And there will be many more who will stand up. But the question is, institutionally we have failed. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about individuals. Yes, see, it's like this. My father came from Lahore with nothing. Okay, he lost everything. He didn't even have any papers. So he got no compensation. And he left all his belongings there. And he took up a job in a refugee camp for a measly 200, 300, 400 rupees. And he didn't know what to do. He tried to he was a mathematics student, he tried to therefore get a job as a teacher. He couldn't get a job. So he said, okay, I'll go to Shimla and go to the High Court and start my life afresh. So he started his life afresh. And he was the only earning member of the family. We were 4. I was born in 48, but I had 4 brothers. 3 brothers, 1 sister. He had 2 younger brothers of school-going age, retired parents, and he was the only earning member. So we started life like that, and with positivity. We talked about being positive. And I imbibed that from him. I always am positive, but I think that yes, change will come about one day. So yes, there are many such people who are courageous, who will not give up.
And he was minister with Padma later.
Yes, he was.
That's also a story that your father struggled from there, then reputation, and likewise you. You haven't told me which side do you enjoy more. Is it making argument in Supreme Court or your state in
My
Parliament?
problem is that whatever I do, I am 100% immersed in that. So if it's in Parliament, I enjoy it the most while I'm in Parliament. In court, I don't think about Parliament. And when I'm writing, I don't think about either Parliament or the Parliament. So I enjoy whatever I do, and I give my 100%. And
on more serious note, remember 2004-5, and you were there,
Yes.
and your speeches are there. There was some, quota was repealed,
yes.
and there was a mood as if, we will give up extraordinary laws, because there were also committee made in Maharashtra to rethink about Makoka. So that was the mood in 2004. 2022, we have far more stringent UAP, except for the confession clause, which is contribution of your regime.
Yes, my regime contributed a lot to this.
Absolutely. But now you have UAPA, now you have PMLA, now you have Gujarat anti-terror and organized crime act. What has changed? I mean, it's not that things have gone bad. So why this whole plethora of extraordinary laws, kind of repressive laws?
Well, let me answer that somewhat differently. You take any law in this country, take the Code of Criminal Procedure, you can misuse any law you want to misuse. The stringency of the law is not the issue. is the manner in which you use the law. Right? I mean, you can have a UAPA, but you can use it only against terrorists, genuine terrorists. So it's how you use it. Now, if you become an urban nutshell in the eyes of the government, then you can use UAPA against him. The Code of Criminal Procedure, you're supposed to investigate matters fairly, but which investigation takes place? Forget about these stringent laws. Under ordinary laws, investigation is polluted. Why? Because the agency doing the investigation does it with a particular bent of mind. The innocent are made guilty and the guilty are left off. So whether it's the Code of Criminal Procedure or UAPA or any other law, it really doesn't matter. It's the agency. Take PMLA, for example. In PMLA, the law has been so interpreted by the Supreme Court and has been so used by these agencies that now they have an all-India jurisdiction. The ED officer can go anywhere in the country and arrest anybody he wants to arrest. He doesn't care.
So both matters, when you argue against that, and still judges gave a judgment, so it's the law also matters. I mean, it's UAPA matters, because those who are put under UAPA, they're not just any ordinary.
But that's precisely the point I'm making, that if you misuse the law and the judiciary is silent, then what do you do? That's the problem. That's why I was talking about institutions. I was not talking about individuals.
But Kapil, you make
The silence of the judiciary is the most vocal part of Indian system now. That's what's happened.
you have a point, but what I want to know is this foundational principle of being presumed innocent until proven guilty. This would also have gone through ups and downs. No, it's not as if it was as bad as say the last 8 years.
Again, it depends.
How was it?
It all depends again. You see, when the court had only 11 judges, when I started practice, only 5 courts were functioning. With only 11 judges. And the matters that used to come up in court were unrelated to issues of freedom, really speaking. Very few people could really access the court at that point in time. The issues were getting importance, particularly after the emergency. And as consumerism, after the economy was liberalized, actually the court was overtaken by disputes which relate to, big corporate houses.
That's what,
Big corporate houses who want to share of the booty. And the ordinary man's issues were relegated to the background, right? So when issues came up before the court, say the privacy judgment, we have a great judgment by the Supreme Court on privacy. But if the ED officer raids your house, where is the issue of privacy? There's no privacy. So again, laws and declaration of laws is one thing. The reality on the ground is that nobody follows it. So where do you go? At that point in time, you can't reach out to the court that this is what has happened. So that then becomes a source of depression. Then that instills fear. Then people say, I don't want to get on the wrong side of the law. That brings about a sense of despair. And therefore people do not want to raise their head and say, I will stand up what I think is right.
It's interesting you talk about how post-reforms, market reform, big business, they also had a certain effect on the way judiciary or even the executive or other adjudicators in the government, how they behave, right? Because the power of capital has its own logic, right? So that's what I'm asking you. I used to be a court reporter in the 80s. I used to cover High Court, sometimes go to Supreme Court also. I found that in that period, when this market economy had not fully taken root, you had judges like Chirapa Reddy and Desai, who used to give very radical, today's standard radical orders, like they were pro-labor, very, very clearly pro-labor. Today, I don't think an employee has any chance.
No, I think the labor movement
exactly.
is timing.
So these are the things which have, and along with of course, the other consequences of the capital taking hold is also how they collaborated with, kind of politics, right?
Absolutely.
The majority of politics is now fully,
No, the capital then was actually the liberalization of the economy resulted in the flow of capital towards institutionally towards politicians, and then there was a quid pro quo that's happening, and therefore the axis between capital, the politician, and the state machinery is the axis that actually controls the politics of India. That's what it is.
to the extent that today you don't even know. You just read some straight data that the big business funding is going to one party, but there is no transparency. We don't know who's.
Well, that's hopefully what it's going to happen.
So that's all the line.
But see, prior to 2014, the situation was not that bad.
That's what I'm saying. So
It got much worse after 2014 for the simple reason that no institution after 2014 is willing to stand up. Look at what's happening to the institution of the governor. Look at what's happened in the university system, the institution of the vice chancellor. Right? Look at what's happening in the judicial system. Look at what's happening in the police force. Right? What's happening in the election commission today. So, which institution is willing to stand up? None. This never happened prior to 2014. Media is the worst. I've written a poem on it, I'll share with you.
yeah.
Right? So it's the worst. So if the media succumbs, the judiciary is not active, is silent, and all other institutions collaborate with government, that's a heady mix.
Can I take you a bit
And
to
democracy will
your role as a politician? Now, I'm curious to know, so you were a member of Congress Party twice, you were elected member, which is so rare because, then you were earlier Rajya Sabha member and now you're Rajya Sabha. So, when UPA you were part of it and you were preparing for elections, there was an adversary which was a party which was cadre-based, which was very organized.
yeah.
Now, that's one model of party, and many people would say that is the only model which is going to survive because it's not just a party, it has RSS, it has other organizations. Now, what is the future? I mean, will it be a party which is going to, counter that, would be replica of the same kind of party with different ideology? So, is it cadre party with organizational structure and biggest NGO called RSS? Is that the model which will be there? Because loose party like Congress with so many different voices has failed. So what do you see, and what were you, when you were part of the party and there was contest which was taking place, did you think that such thing would come, like so organized party will really come and continue in power?
Well, see, look, the character of the BJP itself has changed. Look at the BJP at the time of Vajpayee. Look at the BJP today. There was the RSS there then also. But Vajpayee was brought up in a different cultural environment. An entirely different cultural environment. We have an entirely different cultural environment today, which has nothing to do. I mean, essentially, there was some element of being a Democrat as far as Vajpayee was concerned. But here they really don't care. So that's the problem. And remember, no matter, even if you have the RSS, I don't think that we need another political party to follow that model. I personally think what we need today is a people's movement. What we need today is for the people of this country to realize and to stand up. That can only happen if you have a leader who can inspire people. We don't have such leader at the moment. I mean, whatever you may say about the present Prime Minister, whatever you may be against him, but he inspires a certain element of the people of this country, right? Maybe a very divisive element. And his majoritarian pitch buys him the votes because of the divisive nature of that of his politics. But he is a leader who does inspire that majoritarian culture. You cannot get away from that. So we need a leader. We also need a leader, and it's not going to happen just like that. For that, you need to build a movement, and you have to start somewhere.
And you felt the Congress was not up to it at all.
In Congress, I don't want to talk about the Congress now that I'm not in the Congress. I used to talk about Congress when I was within the Congress. I don't want to talk about the Congress or any political party. The fact is, a leader should stand up and say the right thing, and be, without fear of favor, be prepared to spend time in jail to inspire the people of this country. This is the only way that the country will change. Otherwise, it's not going to change. Otherwise, you're going to have another 5 years of this.
So who do you think has the potential for this? What do you say?
First of all, I will not hazard a guess, number one. Number two, the environment creates the leadership. Jai Prakash was born in that environment, right? So, I think that environment is building up. Somebody will emerge. But I think while that happens, we need to play an important role in the politics of this country. I personally want to start something. I want to tell the lawyers of this country in the next couple of months, now what's happened to you? Let the lawyers come out, at least realize that they have a role to play in the transformation of India. Otherwise, history will never.
So basically you have a plan to mobilize the lawyers.
Absolutely. Lawyers and the middle class and other people. And see, what we need is a forum for change. We need a platform for insaf, for justice. That's what we need. And insaf requires sacrifice on our part. We can't be sitting in our offices. So and insaf at every level, insaf to the girl child, insaf to the teacher, insaf for workers, insaf for communities, for tribals, for people generally. So, I mean, I give an example. In Hindustan, you have this system of Kendriya Vidyalayas exclusively for government servants. They have a system. 100% children of government servants. Nobody questions it. Nobody says it's 100% to one category, so it's violative of 15. Nobody says that. So why can't you have schools only for Adivasis? Why can't an Adivasi school have a school only for the children of Adivasis, or for tribals, or for the people who have no access to education? Then Article 15 will come up. This is discriminatory. Why is it not discriminatory when it comes to government servants' children? These are issues. These are real issues that need to be raised in this country. Why can't teachers be paid? Really, they should be the highest paid category of people in this country. But they are the ones who will build the future of this country. So why is it that teachers are paid a paltry sum? So these are real issues which need to be raised.
Tell me something easy note. When you argue in a court, I mean, say any students taking exam believe that they're going to pass, many believe they're going to be first class first. In courts, do you believe that, okay, I've made an argument, I'm going to win this? Do you have this thing all the time, or do you?
No. Actually, when I walk into court in any matter, I know whether I know the judge.
Are you saying that judges are so predictable?
Yes. Only we are unpredictable.
So tell me give me 4 or 5 judges that in your entire career as senior advocate, those that you really looked up to or respected.
There have been great judges, ऐसी बात नहीं है. But those great judges also have failed us on occasions. Chandrachud was a great judge, but he failed us.
But that's not reflected on judiciary.
Bhagwati was a great judge. He failed us.
But a judge could be predictable on the positive side also, no? You know that, okay, if you go to him, It's a rights
Yeah,
issue, and he'll give us something.
Yes, absolutely. So Bhagwati is one such judge.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, but Venu, either way, it's a problem. If justice
So
is
I have no
predictable-
problem if it is on the positive side.
No, if justice is predictable in this manner, because it's about uncertainty. You make argument, you may win, you may lose, but if it's so predictable, then it's...
What he's saying is somewhat different. If I went to Bhagwati on a matter which involved freedom, say bonded labor or something like that, not that he will decide in your favor, but he will listen to you with the sensitivity of a judge. We're only concerned with that. We're not concerned with the outcome. We 2 or 3 things that should happen in court. When I walk into court, I should know that the judge doesn't have any predilections.
That's true.
Number 1. Number 2, that when I argue the case, he'll listen to me and decide fairly. Right? It really doesn't matter whether I lose or win the case. That's irrelevant. He should hear me. He should appreciate the argument. He should decide without fear or favor. Right? And he should not have any personal predilections. Unfortunately, that's absent. I mean, it's not absent, but it's something that's on the decline.
At this stage, sir, what is that story when you argued this in your initial practice when there was election
that's a great
matter
story.
and one judge?
That's a great story.
So
the
please
first
tell
case
that
I argued, and some people may not have heard, the first case I argued in the Supreme Court was an election petition. I was a young man, and there was a politician who's by the name of Umed Singh. And he was from Haryana, and he fought an election from Mehem constituency. And he won it.
Which constituency?
Mehem, in Haryana. He won it, and his opposite candidate was on Umed Singh. So he filed an election petition, that is Umed Singh. And my client lost. I mean, his election was set aside on 8 counts. And so he must have seen me argue some case. So one day he walked into my office and he said that, I want you to take up my case. I said, fine. It's an election petition to appeal in Supreme Court. I was thrilled. I was 25, 26 years old. So he said, the only problem is I have no money. I said, I have no brief.
First case, no. That was a good start.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter whether he had money or not. It was a great opportunity. And the file ran into about a couple of 1,000 pages. So I had no other briefless lawyer, no other matter to argue. And so I read it, and I was thoroughly prepared. So I go to court, and there's 3 judges of the Supreme Court, Justice Palikar presiding, Justice Sarkari, and Justice Bhagwati. So I got up and I said, this is an appeal under 116A. There's a right of appeal. If there's an election petition that's set aside under the Representation of People Act, there's a right of appeal. So I said, under 116A, there's a right of appeal, so you please admit the matter and hear it. So Palikar said, young man, you don't know the practice of this court. We don't admit matters like that. You have to first convince us whether you have a case or not. So since I was so well prepared, I said, okay, don't look at the file. So I gave them a lecture for about 45 minutes without reading the file. I knew it backwards. So Palikar said, yes, we have to hear it. So that case went on for 20 days. My first case in Supreme Court went on for 20 days. The person opposing me was the Advocate General of Haryana. So I thought I was going to win the case. I lost. And the judges gave me the impression throughout that I was winning.
Very predictable.
But look at the greatness of Bhagwati. When I opened the case, one of the issues in the case was that a candidate had given a bribe to somebody before the date of withdrawal. As you know, Yaqub Bhai will tell you, you have a date of nomination, a date of withdrawal. In between, a bribe was given before the date of withdrawal. So Bhagwati had 2 months ago rendered a judgment saying that this is covered by 123(1)(a, and his election was set aside. So Bhagwati told me up front that, young man, I've just rendered a judgment. The facts are identical in your case, and therefore we need not hear this matter because it's covered by my judgment. So I said, I'm sorry, but judgment is erroneous. He was taken aback. And he said, why do you say so? So I argued for a couple of days on the law. As luck would have it, at the end of the hearing, even though I lost the case, Bhagwati wrote a separate judgment saying that I was wrong. Look at the greatness of the man. He said judges should never hesitate to declare that what they had said earlier was wrong. Right? That's the greatness of the judge. Okay, so on 8 counts of corrupt practice, I won in 7 but lost in 1. Okay. So several years later, I was at a dinner and Sarkaria had retired and so had Bhagwati. Sarkaria took me aside holding my hand. He said, Kapil, I feel very sorry. I said, so what are you sorry about? You should have won that case. He spoke very slowly. You should have won that case. We were very sorry. I and Bhagwati wanted to decide in your favor. But Palekar was dead against you. And it was his last judgment.
Again predictable.
So we did not want to differ with him. Can you imagine? So okay, so I said, fine, forget about it now. Of course, the sad part is that poor politician became a lawyer and I became a politician. So anyway, a couple of months later, Bhagwati met me. He took me aside and he said the same thing to me. So then I said to myself, these guys never decide in accordance with law. So I better get to know what these guys are all about. So I would sit in, briefless lawyer would sit in every court just watching the judge. What kind of man is he? What is he like? What has he done? So you have to know the judge. That's how I started my practice, getting to know the judge. That's when I said, I know when I go to court what the guy is going to do.
So would you say that this psyops should become a formal chapter in any legal?
No, I will certainly tell the story.
Education for a lawyer.
I will certainly tell the story, but this is the sad part, that there are many things that happen which are not apparent. So sometimes you lose a good case, which you shouldn't lose. Sometimes you win a bad case, you shouldn't win.
Here, I must point to one on the issue of predictability of judges. It's the height of predictability. There was a case of wire which was pending in the Supreme Court for a year. Then suddenly it came up before a judge, I won't name that person. And Kapil was advising, Nitya was also good. So Kapil's advice was based on predictability. Just go to the court and say, we are withdrawing the case. And Nitya was there, he just went and said, we are withdrawing the case. So he was flummoxed. He said, no, I will say something. Then Kapil said, no, there won't be any order. We are withdrawing the case. We are willing to go to the trial court and jail the trial court. So earlier we came here to, to sort of mitigate process as punishment. We told him we are willing to go to process as punishment.
I know. You would have been in deep trouble that we argued the case. That you have to know the judge, no? That's very important.
So I think we have exceeded our time. We wanted interaction with the audience. So please.
कपिल सिब्बल साहब, सबसे पहले तो आपको मुबारकबाद कि आपको ये जो जश्न हो रहा है 50 साल आपने पूरे किए हैं, although you don't look that old. और जैसा अहबाब शमशाद साहब ने शुरू में कहा कि आपने हमेशा गरीब, बेसहारा और मजलूमों की बात को रखने की कोशिश की है. लेकिन अभी जब वेणु ने आपसे पहला सवाल किया कि आप बहुत पेसिमिस्टिक लग रहे हैं, मैं इसी सवाल को ज़रा दूसरे अंदाज में पूछना चाहूँगा कि हमारे सामने सुप्रीम कोर्ट के कई जजमेंट हैं, हिस्टोरिकल जजमेंट है, केशवानंद भारती का जजमेंट और उसके बाद HR खन्ना साहब का रोल, और आपने चंद्रचूड़ साहब का जिक्र किया, लेकिन ADM जबलपुर में उन्होंने जो जजमेंट दिया, उनके बेटे ने जो अभी चीफ जस्टिस डेजिग्नेट हैं, उन्होंने उसको बदला. क्या इस मौजूदा माहौल में हम कुछ उम्मीद कर सकते हैं इस सुप्रीम अदालत से कि वो इस मुल्क के गरीब मजलूम बेसहारा लोगों की आवाज़ बन सके या उन्हें इंसाफ दे सके। क्योंकि अभी पिछले हफ्ते हमने देखा कि साईं बाबा केस में एक स्पेशल हियरिंग होती है और उसको जस्टिस से डिनाई कर दिया जाता है। इस शख्स को हाई कोर्ट बेल दे चुका है। तो इस पर मैं चाहूँगा कि आप कुछ
देखिए, बड़ा मुश्किल है मुझे कहना कि देयर एनी रे ऑफ होप, इसके बारे में तो मैं कुछ नहीं कहूँगा। वी ऑलवेज लिव ऑन होप। लेकिन मैं आपको जो इसका जो रूट कॉज है ना, वो है जो मामला मैंने कई सालों पहले उठाया भी था, दैट इज मास्टर ऑफ द रोस्टर। होता क्या है, अगर आप हिस्ट्री ऑफ द कोर्ट पिछले 8 साल की देखोगे, दैट a lot of sensitive cases in which the government is involved go only to a particular judge. अब ये at random तो हो नहीं सकता, तो असाइन करता है ना कोई, तो वो क्यों असाइन होता है? That's the heart of the problem. अगर आप चीफ जस्टिस कह सकता है कि साहब ये जज इसके बाद, अभी साईं बाबा के केस में कौन बेंच बना एंड बेला त्रिवेदी जी, ठीक है ना? तो ठीक है, कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है, लेकिन क्वेश्चन इज के नॉर्मली दिस मैटर, हम जब किसी की कन्विक्शन होती है ना, तो वी समटाइम्स मूव एन एप्लीकेशन फॉर सस्पेंशन ऑफ सेंटेंस. Sometimes if the person has to fight an election because he is convicted for 3 years, he can't fight an election, we say suspend the conviction. So it's only in the rarest of rare cases that judges suspend convictions. But I have never heard of a case where the judges have suspended acquittal. I have never heard. And on a special, a proceeding on a Saturday. So, but what can you say about this? Ultimately, it's the court that must be sensitive about its own image. The institution must be concerned about itself. We are outsiders to that. I mean, we are part of the institution, but in a sense, we don't take those decisions. But it is disturbing. But we still have to live on hope. We hope one day that things will change. But we have to be part of that change. If we just sit back and not be part of that change, nothing will happen.
मैं कपिल, पहले तो मैं आपको बहुत मुबारक देता हूँ कंप्लीशन ऑफ 50, प्लेइंग ए गुड इनिंग। मैं इससे पहले कि टफ सवाल करूँ, मैं कपिल की तारीफ में और 50 ईयर्स पे बात करूँगा कि कपिल पे वो 100% शेयर लगता है जो अहमद फराज का है कि सुना है लोग उसको आंख भर के देखते हैं तो उसके शहर में कुछ दिन ठहर के देखते हैं, सुना है बोले तो बातों से फूल झड़ते हैं, अगर ये बात है तो बात करके देखते हैं। दैट इज सैल्यूट टू कपिल। एंड नाउ द क्वेश्चन कपिल इज, आई मीन व्हाट यू सेड, I mean, I am a Kabir fan, बुरा जो देखने में चला. Don't you think, and you have been, I have no inhibition saying you have been one of the finest president we ever had in last few decades. One of the finest president, strong president. Don't you feel that Bar is also responsible for all this, that during recent years, Bar has been very, very, very weak?
अरे भाई, आपके आने से पहले मैं ये सब बातें कह चुका और ये बात मैं कह चुका।
I think that's why he's talking about mobilizing lawyers outside of the bar.
Good, then we are on same page.
चलो मैं आपको एक
बढ़िया चीज सुना दीजिए ना।
हाँ, सुनाता हूँ कि मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, वहां से वापस भी आना लाजमी। मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, वहां से वापस भी आना लाजमी है। ऐसा नशा के छोड़ कर करूंगा क्या, ऐसा नशा के छोड़ कर करूंगा क्या, महकाने का दोस्ताना लाजमी है, महकाने का दोस्ताना लाजमी है। दूर होकर भी बता करूंगा क्या, दूर होकर भी बता करूंगा क्या, तेरे शहर में घर बसाना लाजमी है। अपना बना के तूने अब ठुकरा दिया, फिर भी तुझको अपना बनाना लाजमी है। गली गली में ये जो आग जल रही है, गली गली में ये जो आग जल रही है, उस आग को हमें बुझाना लाजमी है। खुदा के वास्ते इस दहशती को छोड़ दे, खुदा के वास्ते इस दहशती को छोड़ दे तो ये गुल्स था उजाड़ना क्या लाज़मी।
You want to read some political poems?
Political?
Political syntax if possible, yeah.
Why, lots of. I just published a book called Reflections. Yakub Bhai was there. And it's just a few weeks ago. We'll talk about, the title of this poem is As Lies Unfold. As Lies Unfold. The camera views with just one eye. The camera views with just one eye. I wish it could have two. Along with it, a mind that helps to find out what is true. The truth is not frozen in time with images we see. Those peddling it as lies unfold, bruising its sanctity. It's just one way to look at things. See them as we perceive, are harbingers of prejudice, meant only to deceive. With my two eyes, absorb all sights, beyond them search for more. The truth perhaps eludes me oft, afraid to be too sure. I have struggled within myself to find out what is true, constrained to tell the moving stream, cannot believe in you. And then one last one, which I would like to share with you, is called The Joy of Being. It's in a different mood. To live and to be alive. To decay or to thrive. The measured moments of my life are tiresome, predictable. Like my migraine, which pounds me without remorse. I succumb, knowing that it will return to haunt me. A blessed moment, a wet kiss, a brush with innocence, the sunset of a receding wave, moments of wilderness, the womb of nature, a surge of joy within. My mind sprints to nowhere land with a smile.
So many things have been spoken about what is happening at the bar and the judiciary. We have Mr. Vikas Singh, our President of Supreme Court Bar Association here. I'll request Mr. Singh to come and please offer a bouquet to Mr. Sibal. This will serve the other purpose also, that we will make everybody realize that you were present. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Vikas Singh had to go to 4-5 places, and I see that sir has spent more time here because Mr. Sibal's affection brings everybody running. Thank you, sir. If somebody wants to interact, then certainly there's some.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
I am Charu. I'm a 5th year law student, and I've always been curious about one thing. You used to practice at Wall Street, and that is the epitome of success that everyone in my college or everyone my age talks about. Why would you ever leave that?
Wall Street?
Yes.
Why would I ever be there? Why would I leave Wall Street for what? I'll be a cog in the wheel.
New York, she practiced in New York.
I would be a cog in the wheel, and I used to do banking matters and stuff like that. Well, what would I do in New York for what? Just to earn a bit of money.
But still, did you not enjoy that?
Enjoy what? I enjoy being in my country, fighting it out for people. That's what I enjoy.
मैं अपना बस रिश्ता बताना चाह रहा था कपिल सिब्बल साहब से। कपिल सिब्बल साहब के जूनियर थे के लहरी साहब, उनके जूनियर थे मानिक तला साहब, और मैंने मानिक तला साहब के साथ काम किया, तो मेरे ग्रैंड सीनियर हैं कपिल सिब्बल। दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू से। थैंक यू सर।
Sir, you talked about media. So you talked about media. Can you say something about your media experience, in fact?
See, I thought that, what can I tell you? I thought I don't want to say anything harsh really, but the fact of the matter is that there are more egos in the media world, and a lot of them really don't care about the news, right? And then I think, see, the problem is, see, we as society have lost our moral bearings, and that doesn't apply to, it applies across the world, from politicians to lawyers to media to civil servants to institutional heads. It applies across the world. We've lost it. And we've lost it because we are overtaken by our desire to earn money, as if that's the only thing in life. This is the problem. See, all right, let me put it this way. I believe that life revolves around 5 things. What are those? My sense of taste, my sense of smell, my sense of sight, my sense of hearing, and my sense of touch. Everyone sitting in this room, his or her life revolves around these 5 senses. Right? Who is a good human being? A human being that likes to see things which are pretty. Doesn't want to see people being murdered. Who wants to touch with empathy. Who wants to hear the sound of music, not the wailing cry of a child. Right? And who wants to taste. We moved far away from that. If each of us realize how important is, what are those 5 senses that tell us about life, we'll be on the right path.
I'll just add on media, since I'm from the media, very simple fact I want to state. You know, editors, in the last 10 years, again what he was talking about, this capital market economy, big capital entering the media. A lot of journalists started getting salaries of 2 crores plus a year. In my view, a journalist cannot work with 2 crores a year. He'll just forget about journalism and he'll join some other cadres, you know. It's impossible. And of course, some of that has just come down with a third. There is no revenue model for media.
But that's true of lawyers also. What are you talking about?
So I always say that in the 80s and 90s, media, there was no revenue model, but there was a lot of freedom for editors. Today, there is no revenue model, there is no freedom.
Sir, there's one more thing which comes to mind when we see you. There's one more sense, sir, by which you are guided, and that's the sense of justice. You, I have seen in court, have been balancing the scales for the poor. There's one particular instance that I would like to share with the crowd. There was a case going before the Chief Justice regarding the freebies. And you particularly mentioned the court didn't know what was freebies. So you said today there is a strike of bus and therefore my maid couldn't reach home. So she for the first time came and borrowed metro ticket money from me. And although I gave it to her, I just asked, kid, how do you travel every day? Because you have never asked it before. That shows your kindness. But the way you put it to the judge, that the lady informed me back that now she doesn't have to buy a ticket because now she can travel, it's free for her. And then you gave your human touch that you can't call that as a freebie. So when we see you, there's one more sense, the sense of being just, not only to yourself, but bringing for those unrepresented people who can't be seen, who are lost, who are faceless, who don't have any existence. But for you, you are their knight, sir. And we are proud to have you amongst us.
It's very kind of you.
Sibal साहब, मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ, इससे पहले कि सरकार कोई ऐसा कानून बना दे कि आप किसी जजमेंट पे पब्लिकली कुछ बात ना कह सकें, जिसका कि अभी चीफ जस्टिस साहब ने लॉ मिनिस्टर से कहा, मैं 2 जजमेंट पे आपका ऑब्जर्वेशन चाहता हूँ। बाबरी मस्जिद के इशू पर जो केस लड़ा गया सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, उसका तमाम ऑब्जर्वेशंस कोर्ट के वेयर इन फेवर ऑफ बाबरी मस्जिद, but the judgment goes in favor of other people. What do you say about it? दूसरा सवाल और है।
मैं actually I haven't read the judgment.
अपना पहला
I haven't read the judgment.
इनका जो पहला केस था,
ठीक है। दूसरी बात का जजमेंट जिसमें आप खुद इन्वॉल्व है, इसकी बात करें। नताशा नरवाल, दलित कालिता, आसिफ तन्हा का आपने केस सुप्रीम कोर्ट में लड़ा था, जब हाई कोर्ट ने इन्हें बेल दे दी थी दिल्ली राइट के केस में, जस्टिस मृदुल थे उसके अंदर, और उन्होंने उस चार्जशीट को और उस एफआईआर के धज्जियां उड़ा दी थी, और सरकार गई थी उसको बदलने के लिए, लेकिन फैसला ये हुआ कि ठीक है, जो बेल दे दी गई वो तो नहीं बदलेगी, लेकिन इसको प्रेसिडेंस के तौर पर इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते। Sometimes back, 3-4 days back, same judge has given a very opposite judgment on the same charge sheet, on the same FIR. आप उस जजमेंट और इस जजमेंट के ऊपर में क्या बात?
मैंने पहले तो वो जजमेंट पढ़ी नहीं, पर गांधी जी कहते थे if you change your views it's wisdom.
It is not.
उमर खालिद के फादर हैं मिस्टर कासिम।
नहीं, मुझे मालूम है। देखिए ऐसा है कि इन चीजों में मैं ज्यादा बोलना नहीं चाहता, बोलूंगा कोर्ट में बोलूंगा।
मैं लास्टली मिस्टर इनामदार से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि वो यहाँ तशरीफ लाए।
Sir, while being grateful for all the support one gets from you, I have a question to ask, and it's a call for all of us actually. You know, there's a sense of fear that is set in, even amongst the lawyers. It's one thing to say that lawyers are not coming together, but a lot of us have a lot of fear. And younger people, when I go to them asking if they're willing to do some cases, many of them resist not because they don't agree with what they want to do, but because they're afraid. And so I think as a person who's been around for such a long time and seen all kinds of sides and taken a stand and being supportive of us, what kind of support can we all collectively offer young people if they want to continue this work and continue to raise their voice? Because today there's a kind of a vacuum there, and many of us are actually giving up these cases. And so another point, I think you must also talk about the outrageous fees that lawyers charge. And I think there must be some comment on that, because it's like I don't know what to say to that, but it's extremely outrageous that some kind of fees are, because it's when we look at those figures, you really wonder, I just feel it's so surreal, but people charge and people pay.
Yeah, the point is that we need to support these young people who are willing to fight, and we should support them both financially and with courage. And I'm willing to be part of that movement. There's no issue on that. And should be part of our mobilization. Point is that fear will never take us anywhere. You fear that if you go to conquer the Mount Everest, you may die on the way. You still do it. You still do it, no? You do it because come what may, you have to conquer. You have to go there. You have to put the Indian flag up there. So, see, I think we need to take care of our own. It's the love of our country that will get rid of that fear. You have to love your country. You have to love your own children and their future for you to do all that. We have to do it. You have no choice. And ultimately, होगा क्या? 2-3 महीने जेल ही जाना पड़ेगा. इससे ज्यादा तो नहीं होगा. फिर तब तक 90 दिन में चार्जशीट फाइल हो जाती है या 60 दिन. उसके बाद तो रिहा हो ही जाएंगे। हाँ? थोड़ी देर और बच जाएगी। डर से तो कोई कभी तो जीत नहीं सकता ना कोई, खौफ से तो कोई नो सोल्यूशन। I fear, so I shall not do anything. ये तो कोई बात नहीं हुई ना।
PIL again to clean up Bihar jails, that's very bad. That compared to so many other jails.
That's true, that's true. अब देखो क्या
For all the future guests.
I know. सब चलता है। But I want to end with a positive note. I've been saying a lot of things that are the reality that confronts us. The positive note is there are lots of people who are committed to the country, cause of what the country stands for, and are willing to take up those causes in a big way. What we need to do is to connect. There are lots of people around the country who believe in all this, but we have to join the dots and we need to connect them. For that we need a movement. We need a movement, and I plan to do that actually in the months to come, not the years to come.
Require a good organization structure.
Yeah, it will. But it has to be. We must start something, and I'm going to start it in Delhi, and then take it forward. No harm.
जी to conclude this wonderful evening, may I request Mr. P.A. Inamdar to come here and say a few words and conclude this session before we proceed to have dinner.
When Honorable Sibal ji was Minister HRD, I was on 2-3 committees, and we had many times some sort of interaction. One of the most important issue which I discussed, because I am fighting for minorities' educational rights, I requested him to answer one question, whether I am right or wrong. I had mentioned that every Indian is minority as far as right of education are concerned. Every Indian, whether he is a minority or majority, he is having that right. After some time, after thinking, Sir mentioned it, yes, what you are saying is right. Because one is linguistic minority and one is religious minority, and both have same rights. So he mentioned in such a way, as soon as a person, say from Gujarat, he goes out of Gujarat, then who is he? He is a linguistic minority. Like that, every Indian, when he leaves his state and goes to other state and stays there, he is linguistic minority and having both same rights. So that aspect was very important for me, and I am 100% sure this is how things are now going to finalized. Apart from that, as a minister, this Right to Education Act was enacted, and there was some sort of a issue I wanted to point it out to him. One, that whether this act can be enforced against the minority education institutions. So he said, yes, this is a point. And he amended the law, and minorities, Article 29 and 30 cases cannot be enforced against that. So I remember those things and I wanted to mention. And when we were traveling from Bengal to Delhi, we decided it's not only these issues, but he's a very nice human being. Because when he fights the case, he fights from heart. And that I will never be able to forget. And therefore, we decided that such type of a meeting must be conducted, we must appreciate, and everybody should understand such type of people are rare and we must appreciate them. Thank you, sir.